And we're fortunate to have with us today 4 presentations, 4 speakers who will talk about different aspects of work that's going on the river. And we will start our program today with the Bayou Vermilion District and the representative who is working hard on the river today, and that is Emile Ancelet. Emile?
Yes, sir.
I'm very proud of that young man. He's been through our classes over at the university in several different fields. And I can hand you this one if it works out. Okay, great. Now, the Bayou Vermilion District has a long-standing mission to clean up the bayou and to make it, and to also learn about the bayou and see what it needs and what we can do for it. And Emile is in charge of that operation right now, and he is out there. We could say Emile is in the trenches, but that's not a good metaphor for a river. He's in the boat on the river and working at it on a daily basis practically. Emile, do you have some words for us? What's going on the river today?
Oh, I got quite a few words. Can you hear me? Is this good? Okay. Like you said, my name is Emile Ancelet. I'm with the Lafayette Parish, Bayou Vermilion District. We are in charge of the water quality of the river, and on this section, people get confused with us because they assume that we have total control over everything that happens on the river. The truth is that a lot of it has to do with the public. We have control over, or we try to have control over, water quality of the river. So just a little bit of background about the district. In the mid-1970s, around 1973, 75, to the early 1980s, to 1983, the Department of Natural Resources did an intensive water quality study on the river for this particular project. And when their results came out, it was deemed that the river was unsuitable for any contact, secondary or primary. So that led to the creation of the Teche-Vermilion Freshwater District, who we have the director here, Mr. Donald Sagrera, is here to also talk about that. Along with the Teche-Vermilion Freshwater District, the Bayou Vermilion District was formed to find ways to improve the water quality. So in 1984, we were created, and from 1984 to the beginning of 1990, in those few years, there was a significant improvement in water quality, mainly in the parameter of the fecal coliform. But after those first few years, when they fixed a lot of those problems, the improvement kind of tapered off. And let's see. And it was because of those results that they got with DNR that both of the Teche-Vermilion and the Bayou Vermilion District was formed. In the early 2000s, the next water quality program kicked off, and so it's been since 2000 now. In the last few years, the Bayou Vermilion District has teamed up with Lafayette Consolidated government to better what we've been doing on the river, and to also get with them for their MS4 permit. But that's not the only thing that the river does. We do take water samples. We take water samples from the river. The Bayou Vermilion District and LCG, we take water samples from the river twice a month, the first and last Wednesday of each month, and we test for a lot of different parameters that deal with water quality. But other than that, BVD employs a crew of 6 people that are on the river every single day. Those people deal with the results of the public, really. They deal with trash, a lot of trash. The way the trash system works is, of those 6 people, 4 people hit the river every day. set of 2 goes south, the other set of 2 goes north. They have 6 to 8 55-gallon drums in each boat, and they fill those up twice a day. That ends up being about 60 barrels a week of trash that comes out of the river. Up to, there's been a maximum of about 150 barrels in 1 week, where it's just been almost too much to handle. You have to dump barrels halfway through the week. The crew also deals with navigability, with trees being in the river. So one of the things that's interesting about the Bayou Vermilion is that the northern part was functioning as a bayou, and the southern part was a river that was formed from headwater erosion. So it was eroding north from the bay. And somewhere around Pinhook Bridge, Rotary Point area, those 2 systems met. And they were in the beginning, they were working completely differently. Now they're part of the same system, and it makes things a little more complicated. If you go into Vermilion Parish, it looks more like a river. It's nice wide meanders that have the nice slopes. And the further north you go on the river towards Arneville, you'll see a lot steeper banks, typical of what they saw of the Vermilion in the old days. But with the development of Lafayette, with the development of Arneville and all those Cairn Crow and all these places around them in concrete, we're having pretty major erosion problems on the north end of the river. That causes massive 100-year-old trees to fall into the river. So one of BVD's jobs is also to take their grappler barge out there, remove those obstacles from the river to make it safe for people to use. They spend about 5 or 6 days a month just doing that, on top of taking out the trash from the river that they do. So you have the trash, you have the erosion control, which also includes reviewing and helping people with their bulkhead situations if they choose to do a bulkhead, or they're planting native trees along the river on their properties to help stabilize their banks. And we also do the water quality testing that we do. BVD also has a recreation and education coordinator specifically for those things. That Mr. Greg Guidros is our education and recreation coordinator. He deals with all of the public canoe and kayak launches that we have on the river. He also has a major deal with all of the boat launches that we have. We do have a lot of boat launches. We have North Landing, the Nature Trail, Surrey Street Nature Trail. We will soon be getting another canoe and kayak launch as part of BVD now. Beaver Park, Southside Park, Rotary Point, and Vermilionville. I'm pretty sure it's in the future plans for Southside to get a boat launch. So we maintain all of those parks, all those linear parks that we have along the river. So I guess we can talk a little bit about the results that we got. What we found since we started our research is that we still have a major problem with fecal coliform in the river. Even though the levels are far lower than they were when BVD was established, and all the efforts that BVD has done, working with landowners and Lafayette's the environmental compliance people and all these things going on to try to stop the pollution before it hits the river, they've definitely had an effect, but it's not quite enough. Right now, from the results that we've gotten, we are completely open for secondary recreation. We're trying to make more improvements so that we can get the river open for primary contact, which is swimming, skiing, and all that stuff. It used to be. See, I don't know what else we have to talk about.
Well, Emile, that's very, very good. We appreciate learning about that. And of course, the Bayou Vermilion District, in case anybody doesn't know, it's a taxing entity, so the local taxpayers help to pay for that cleanup that Emile has been talking about. And by doing that, they also help to sustain Vermilionville. And so it's very, very important work that's going on. The taxpayers are helping to see that that's done. And we're glad to hear the effort that's going on right here in this afternoon. If you have a chance to take a ride in the parade, you'll see some of the handiwork of the Bayou Vermilion District and their cleanup operation and see how the river's looking there. I hope you all get a chance to do that. Emile, thank you very much for sharing that with us. All righty. We also have with us today Mr. Don Sagrera. And Don, if you'd like to come up and share some ideas with us. Don is with the Teche-Vermilion Freshwater Project, and that is another thing that we're learning about is that the Bayou Vermilion, or the River Vermilion, whichever you call it, is a significant waterway, but it is also connected with the Bayou Teche. So we need to think about that. We need to think about these waterways as really connected one to another, and Mr. Don is going to help us understand that. Don Sagrera.
Thank you, Doc. Am I on? Okay, good. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be able to be here. I'm glad to have heard Emile's presentation and congratulate Bayou Vermilion District for all of the work that they do. It certainly is excellent work, and Bayou Vermilion and the Vermilion River are much better off because of all of their efforts. But I'd like to start my presentation with showing you the drainage system of the Mississippi River. This is the Mississippi River watershed, and if you'll notice, about 40% of the continental United States drains through the Mississippi River. This includes 30 states, 2 provinces in Canada. So all of this water is passing through Louisiana. Of course, this is a good thing to step back a little bit. This is this drainage district, the way it's set up, gives us a very, very fertile delta where we're able to produce the food that we need for the United States. And it's one of the things that make our nation great. Occasionally, however, when you have heavy rainfalls, this drainage system causes flooding problems. And Louisiana, being at the bottom part of the drainage system, usually catches the worst part of it. Those severe floods happen periodically. One of them happened around 1927, which is called the Great Flood of 1927. And that flood led to the creation of protection levees and floodways, because our federal government did this in order that we don't have these floods happening continuously and threatening our food supply as well as our businesses. This map shows where the protection levees and floodways were set up. This is the Atchafalaya floodway. This is the Merganza floodway. And there were levees that were put up on each side of the Mississippi River and Atchafalaya River to control the floods. Well, this was a great thing. And after these floodways were put in, we have had several floods that were not as devastating as the flood of 1927. So we had to have them. But there was some disadvantages that came with the levees and floodways. And one of those disadvantages was in our area, because the protection levees that were put in cut off the natural flow of water to the Teche-Vermilion basin that we had before, because Bayou Vermilion and Bayou Teche were connected to Bayou Catawba, which was connected to the Atchafalaya River. So back in those days, there was just a natural flow of water that came through our systems. Once the floodways were put in and the natural flow was cut off, our area had some very deteriorated water quality. There was 2 problems. One was a lack of water, and the other was the quality of the water that we did have. So The state of Louisiana addressed this problem by asking the Department of Public Works to conduct a study to find out what needed to be done. And what the study came up with was that we needed to recreate that flow. And this was done by putting in a pumping station. The natural flow was recreated by putting in a pumping station on the Atchafalaya River, which pumped about 1,060 cubic feet per second of water across the floodways and discharging that water into the same natural water bodies that had that flow before the floodways. So the project was built by the federal government. It cost $40 million, and we started pumping water back in 1982. So once the pumps started pumping, that natural flow was recreated. And this is how the water that's flowing in the Vermilion River today is getting there. It's either being pumped when we have a lot of rainfall like we have had this spring. Some of that water is runoff water. So whenever you have a good rainfall and natural runoff, we're able to stop pumping. And then whenever that water is drained, then we start the pumps back. And day before yesterday, the drainage of water that we had earlier was completed, and we started pumping. So the water that's passing through the Vermilion today is water that's being pumped from the Atchafalaya River. The way it gets to the Vermilion, once we pump it from the Atchafalaya River, it is conveyed across the floodway. It is dumped into the Borrow Pit Canal on the west side of the protection levee, and then it gravity flows into Bayou Catawba, and that's where the natural flow used to be. So the water flows into Bayou Catawba, goes to Port Barre, where it enters Bayou Teche, because Bayou Teche joins Bayou Catawba in Port Barre, and then it's just a natural gravity flow on down through the Teche-Vermilion Basin. In Arnaville, a branch of the Vermilion River called Bayou Fusilier joins in and hits Bayou Teche. So at that point, some of the water enters into the Vermilion River. The second point at which it enters the Vermilion River is just south of Brobridge. There's a canal that was dug from Bayou Teche to Bayou Vermilion in the early 1900s by an irrigation company. And our Teche-Vermilion Freshwater District was able to buy that canal. It's called the Ruth Canal. There's a structure that we can use to regulate how much flow comes from Bayou Teche to the Vermilion through that Ruth Canal structure. So that canal really is opened about the maximum right now because we're trying to put as much water as possible into the Vermilion River for the function that that's going on today. I might add, with the north winds that we've been having, it may be a little lower than we'd like to see it, but if there wouldn't be for the water that we're pumping that's going into it, it would probably be maybe a foot or so lower than it is right now. So that's just to show you some of the shots of some of the structures. This is a shot of the pumping station. Here's the Atchafalaya River. There's an inlet channel that takes water from the Atchafalaya River to the pumps. Inside of that pumping station are 5 pumps, each capable of pumping 260 cubic feet per second of water. So the capacity is when 4 pumps are running, so we can pump as much as 1,060 cubic feet per second. And so this is where, and then the water is discharged into a conveyance channel, which takes it across the floodway, like we had seen a while ago. So basically, I'd like to wrap it up with that. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We do have other photographs that show each one of the structures, and I can leave them around in here today if anybody wants to look at them, and I'll also be around if anybody has any specific questions.
Thank you very much, Don. Thanks
Thank you
very much. Okay, so, and what we're learning, you know, is that the Teche-Vermilion project takes a lot of management. So this water doesn't just go willy-nilly everywhere. It has its own route, and it takes an effort. And it takes a governmental effort to do this. It takes money and it takes support to do that, just like the Bayou Vermilion District does take support in order to do that. Our next guest today is Bess Foret, and she works for Lafayette Consolidated Government. And again, we see the workings of government as being very important to our area and what they do to help keep our waterways viable. And of course, the city parish has its own particular concerns. And Bess, how could you help us understand that?
Well, first of all, while she gets my PowerPoint going, it's a shame that not more people are in here, because little do they know, at the end of this talk, I have a drawing for $1 million for people present. So if only they would have gotten more people in here, there would be a millionaire. So anyway, I am with Lafayette Consolidated Government. Our regulatory compliance group, which is actually part of Public Works, oversees our stormwater program, which is MS4. I guess I'm just going to tell you, next slide, okay, go ahead. It's hard to see, but that Louisiana Pollutant Discharge Elimination System is actually a permitting system to the DEQ, and MS4 is, you can go to the next slide, is Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, which just means that it is all of the underground pipes, the coulees, the ditches, everything that is leading water into a water of the United States, which in our case is the Vermilion River. Very west of the parish, it goes into the Mermentau. But so this is anything that's not going to the sanitary sewer system or combined sewer, that everything, it doesn't get treated when it goes down the MS4. Next slide. This is like my shirt. These signs are around trying to get people to realize that whole idea of a watershed, that everything that's going down into our streets, into those, everything is getting into the Vermilion. Obviously, that's not our skyline, but it just is the idea that even at your homes, at downtown, wherever, that it's getting to the Vermilion. Next slide. That's a Beaver Park. For a little further down the river, we have those signs at coulee crossings, bridge crossings. Parks, the Rotary Point has one. Go ahead. So some of the ways we also want to spread the word is, I don't know if any of y'all have seen these or know what these are. It's the storm drain markers that lets people know everything that's going down that storm drain is getting into a waterway. So people who blow grass and leaves into the street, even, it ends up into the Bayou Vermilion and has an effect on our on the water quality. It sucks the oxygen out of the water when all that grass starts to decompose. It pulls the water out. Somebody must have heard about the $1 million giveaway, because I see people trickling in. Go ahead. This is at schools. We go out to schools and do a little model called an EnviroScape, where I say children in this case, get to make it rain, and it picks up like chocolate cocoa and Kool-Aid, and it's used to show like fertilizer, pesticides, and how all that water picks everything up as it goes. And it really is a great hands-on thing for kids to look at. Go ahead. UL Earth Day, there's Mr. Donald right there. You can see a rain barrel on the left. Charlie was there. We're just getting the word out. Go ahead. Website, that lets people know a lot that's going on, what they can do. I'm going to speed through this because I know time's short. You can go ahead. Door hangers that we do. We have pamphlets to give out, like at a nursery or a car place or a car wash, specific what they might be doing, what might be getting into our waterways because of their business. Go ahead. We do a lot of inspections out there. People call in and say, I saw my neighbor dumping oil, or I see a lot of, this commercial grass cutting, blowing everything out into the street. So we go out, we track. Go ahead. Skip. This is just our tracking system. We keep track of how many visits we made, everything, so that we know what's going on and how it's getting taken care of to make sure it doesn't happen again. Go ahead. You can keep going. This is last year's numbers, how many inspections we did, kind of broken down. We also do proactive that you can see once a week. We just go out to a business, we let them know we're coming. We just show how they're taking care of their parking lot, you know, any discharges that might be coming off of their property. Go ahead. Louder, okay, sorry. This is just some advantage, someone who changed their oil and dumped the oil out on a storm drain, and then that red in that coulee was actually a discharge that came from an industry that was about 10 years ago. So when we see these things, we have to track them down. Go ahead. We do education. We give them written notice of violations. We can do cease and desist. We have the ability to fine people. How can we be proactive? We look and see what kind of land use is going on there. Is it an industrial area? You know, what might be happening? Are there a lot of individual Teche plants that maybe need to be, inspected? We just look and see what's out there. Go ahead. What kind of permits? Keep going. LDEQ, that's the state permits, what kind of permits are out there, what kind of, so we can get an idea of if there might be a concentration of a certain discharge that's going on. Keep going. That's just our checklist when we go out, so we just make sure we hit all the important points. And there's also some questions that we have. A lot of times we get complaints about people dumping crawfish water after they've had a big crawfish bowl. Where does that water go? We've had some questions about that because the sanitary sewer department doesn't want it. Same thing with pumping out their pool, or if those car washes where kids are raising money, all that soapy water goes down the storm drain. It's some things we have to address. You can go ahead. We do stuff with the construction sites to make sure that all that sediment isn't running off. These are just some examples of really horrible sites on the top, and sites where they have best management practices in place to keep stopping that sediment. We look at, do they have hazardous products, paint, are they dumping, how is the porta potty? Sometimes those will get tipped over, are they right on top of a ditch? All those things are looked at all that construction that's going on in Lafayette right now. Keep going. You can't really see that, but that's our citations. We just have, once again, just to kind of how we get at people, it just gets worse and worse and worse if they don't listen to us and ignore us, what we're trying to get them to do. We also, like Emile talked about erosion and everything that's happening, we also want people to start thinking about low-impact development, green infrastructure, that the water that is, after you build a parking lot or a building, all that green space is taken away, and so all that water is not able to infiltrate the ground, and it rushes off into our waterways that much faster and has erosion issues. So we're really trying to do a lot of education with getting people to think about detaining that water or utilizing that water. Go ahead, like having rain barrels or gardens or something that's going to use that water in a better way than just rushing it off and letting the people downstream worry about it a little bit more. Low impact development, there's a comprehensive plan that just is in place that LCG is trying to, that's in the comprehensive plan to really push for that to be included, especially in commercial, new commercial construction. That was just the comprehensive plan where I highlighted where we did have it in the plan. Keep going. This is just some definitions of what post-construction low-impact development is, and just to incorporate those rain gardens and get that water infiltrated and slow down. This is a rain garden that we built at the compost facility. We utilized a UL architecture class and also the Sheriff's Department inmate crews to help us build it. And it really is successful. It's doing great. And we want to use that kind of as a template, or that people can use that at their own businesses. Keep going. We have a rain barrel program, Save a Raindrop, Save So Much More. It's been hugely successful. We've given them away where we built them, but then now we just supplement the cost of some pre-constructed, but we've given away over 1,000 rain barrels at this point. This is at Lourdes. This is just kind of an idea of some good low-impact development that's in place, or at least something better than what used to be. And we need some incentives, or how are we going to get people to really start implementing this? It's important. So we need to think about how we're going to get people to really want to change their ideas and think about new ways to design things. Internally, you can keep going. We just do things within LCG to help that Vermilion River water quality, where we get all of our permitting we need. We have stormwater pollution prevention plans for all of our vehicle maintenance and yards and everything else. We just try to do our best to also, if we're out there telling people they need to do these things, we need to do them as well. Emile talked about sampling that we do with BVD. These are just some pictures of us out there taking the samples. There are 5 spots: Arnaville Bridge, Coulee de Poche, Coulee Webb, Coulee Mean Branch, which is the South College Bridge right there by West Bayou Parkway, and Milton Bridge, where they're out there, and we grab samples every week to try to test for some different things that we're worried about: fecal coliform, dissolved oxygen, total suspended solids. And Donald and his group are also really starting to spread that sampling, so we really get a good idea of what the water quality is or where it may be coming from, so that we can implement some of those BMPs. This is just a picture from last year's boat parade on the left. I had so much fun last year. The BVPA, Charlie's about to talk for them and their work that they're doing. This is just all part of getting that word out about helping our Vermilion River. You can keep going. Urban stormwater, we have a litter ordinance trying to get people to stop the littering. We're getting ready to put a trash trap in at Coulee Mean Branch, which is going to stop a bunch of litter. It's going to really get us easier to collect that litter. That's just all of the going through UL and downtown, a bunch of litter that's getting into our river right now is going to be collected in one spot. It's going to make it a lot easier for us. Hopefully one day we won't have all that litter, but until that day we need a way to collect it so it doesn't get into the water. This beautiful Vermilion River, that was just a picture we took one morning before sampling, and it's just, it looks so nice and beautiful there, and so we just want people to use it and enjoy it. I know we're real short on time. If anyone, I'm going to pass it back to Ray, but if anyone has a question of me, of course, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Bess. And, I'm just very impressed, and I feel better to know that we have a city parish government, and we have a project that joins 2 major watersheds together, the Teche-Vermilion, and we have Bayou Vermilion District out there trying to take care of our waterways. These are all governmental efforts, and without them, I ask you, how would the river look right now? How would our environment look? Would we be taking a parade this afternoon on that river? And so I appreciate all of that public work, and I think we should all. But as it turns out, all of the governmental effort that can be paid for and put into action is not enough. It's not enough, because what we're learning is that we have, as individuals and as citizens, as a private people, we have our own responsibilities, and we have to engage into this process. Fortunately, we have a new organization that has come together to rally and help direct and help encourage public, private citizens to take responsibility as well. And so as guests for us today, we also have the Wyatts, Charlie and Jan Wyatt. We really appreciate you all coming out and the work that you all are doing in so many different ways, but especially today, we'll be talking about the Bayou Vermilion Preservation Association and what is its roles. Charlie, would you like to come up and join us? We have a relatively new, you could use this one if you'd like. Is it on?
Is it on?
Okay, great. The Bayou Vermilion Preservation Association is relatively new. Its need is obvious, and its actions have been great in a very short time and been recognized by any number of different awards that we're very, very proud of. And Charlie is going to tell us a little bit about that. Charlie?
Thank you very much, Ray. I would like to just start that our interest as Bayou Vermilion Preservation Association is to create an awareness of the problems of the river. So if we would have the next slide. I went on a boat ride about a year ago, and this is what I saw. All of this trash and litter that was collected by booms placed by the BVD and the trash being removed by the Bayou Operations Division of BVD. Here you see a couple of the workers trying to clean up the trash, but it's a never-ending project because there are 8 people in the Bayou operations, and there are literally thousands of residents in Lafayette that are discarding all types of trash into the streets. Anything that goes to the street and to the storm drain goes directly to the coulee and to the river. It does not go to the treatment plant. So in essence, the BVD people are trying to pick up the trash of thousands of people. Because of this, we formed the Bayou Vermilion Preservation Association. This is a volunteer group. We are now a 501c3 nonprofit Louisiana corporation. And what we're trying to do, as you can see, is advocating clean, litter-free streams of opportunity. The mission statement, I don't know whether you can read it, but it basically states that we are here to create an awareness within the general public of the problems of the river and how each and every one of us can have an impact. We created a board of volunteers. You can see the actual officers up in the upper left corner. The remainder of the board are on the right upper side. Now, these are all basically volunteers that are passionate about the river and trying to clean the river. But by the same token, we also realized that our knowledge, technical knowledge, is not sufficient to really address the problems. So we took it upon ourselves to create an advisory board, which is listed in the bottom part. And we have basically picked attorneys, LED people, LDQ people, fish and wildlife, many technologies and expertise, so that if we have a problem, we have somebody to go to. And also it opens up many more eyes and ears to the problems. This particular group, and I should have mentioned, are entrusted with the accomplishment of the mission statement. When we first started, we were working with the Bayou Vermilion District and the city, and this is basically, our scope was limited to the Vermilion River as it is within Lafayette Parish. Well, the river in Lafayette Parish is only 35 miles. The river itself is 75 miles. So what we decided, it would be better for the river as a whole. Again, this is what we're emphasizing, is helping the river. So we created the Vermilion River Alliance. Now, this subcommittee includes the mayors of Arnoldville, Abbeville, Lafayette, the parish presidents of the police juror presidents of the 4 parishes that are impacted by the Vermilion. Again, as we did with the original board, we have a secondary advisory board, which again brings in fish and wildlife and the other technical people. This is a symbolic indication of all of the different representatives or their affiliations of the representatives of our board. A little bit difficult to see, but the left side was the Vermilion Parish, and the right is the state of Louisiana. And as Donald indicated, we have the Vermilion, we have the Teche, we have the watershed for those two rivers, plus the rest of Louisiana. This one basically just outlines the two rivers, showing the beginning of the Vermilion up near Arnoldville and how it flows down to Vermilion Bay and ultimately the Gulf of Mexico. Now we're dealing with water quality. Basically, the water quality is not only the litter, but it also is the chemicals and other other pollutants. And so we're trying to work together, again, using the awareness concept and education. We're trying to make it aware to the public that anything that they do can be a negative to the river. As such, we had a symposium in May of this year, and it was a 3-day symposium. We had a cruise on the river, an all-day symposium, and working with other organizations on a Saturday. Later in the year, during the summer, to keep the inertia, keep the ball rolling, we had a Clean Streams project where we had a presentation in June, July, and August. We had... Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it. These were the people that were the sponsors of the symposium. And again, you can see the widespread support, again indicating that we are not the only ones that are concerned. All of these companies and individuals are very, very concerned. Well, I really got ahead of myself. At the symposium, we had a poster contest and also a bumper sticker contest, realizing that if we could get to the children would impact upon the parents. So the bumper sticker contest on the left was a contest for the middle school children, and the bumper stickers have been printed and been distributed. The poster contest was for the middle to high school, and the winner is shown on the right, and we took the poster and blew it up and placed it on multiple billboards around the city. Lamar billboards were very, very nice to allow us to do this, and again, we were hoping that this would give us an awareness to the general public. Next. Now we're back to where I was a minute ago. This was the Clean Streams. We had Whitney Brassieur from University of Louisiana at Lafayette. We had Dana Brown from New Orleans, and then Ernest Juwa, who is the Louisiana Ag Center Farmer Program. These were the speakers, and we covered the entire spectrum. Again, following our concept of working with the schools, we conducted this past fall an in-service teacher program. The item that you see there is called EnviroScape, and the two people are representatives of our group, and they showed the teachers by displaying colored waters and sand and different things through the EnviroScape, and how rainwater would carry all these contaminants to the sewers and ultimately to the river. Again, feeling if we could get to the school system, that we would get to the children and they would talk to their parents. We're now into the litter. We've basically covered a lot of that, but again, it just boils down to an education project. We are trying to convince people to pick up something. If you see it in the street, pick it up. If you see it in your front yard. And this kind of ties in with the basically a poster over there. The city of Lafayette has initiated a project front yard. The concept being is if you see trash in your front yard, that you should pick it up. Well, the streets of Lafayette are our collective front yard. So again, we're trying to get the people to pick up the trash, because if they pick it up, it will not get to the storm drain and will not get into the river. And we can help BVD in that manner. Next. Another slide, and if you can see in the background, there's an apartment complex. Now, more than likely, a lot of that trash for people that are out on their deck, finish their coffee, finish their beer, threw it out, and there it is. If the booms were not there, this would be the river. So fortunately, BVD is putting the booms out. They are collecting it every day. Last year, in 2013, they collected over 1,155-gallon drums of trash. In addition, they got microwaves, refrigerators, tires, automobiles. And this is our river. It should not be this way. Here's an indication of the longevity of what goes in to the river. And I just pick out one, a glass bottle. It's estimated that it will take 600 years for that bottle to deteriorate. Now, if we had one bottle per day, 365 days per year for 600 years, how many bottles would we have in the Gulf of Mexico? I won't go into all the rest, but that will give you the idea. On the fish and wildlife, again, the problem is that all the trash that goes into the river, when it decays, it takes oxygen. It depletes the oxygen in the river and has an adverse effect on the fish. And so basically we're trying to figure out, or I say, the technical people at BVD and the University of Lafayette are trying to figure out how we could increase the oxygen level to perpetuate marine growth. Right now, according to Fish and Wildlife, there are 59 species of fish in the river, and believe it or not, they are edible. There are no heavy metals such as mercury or lead or anything of this nature that is detrimental. So if you do catch a fish, you can eat it. On the recreation aspect, again, as somebody mentioned earlier, I guess it was Ray, at 2 o'clock this afternoon, there will be another boat fest where kayaks, stand-up board, paddle boards, canoes. Last year there even was an ocean-going yacht and many, many other power boats. So at 2 o'clock, if you happen to be here, come join us because it will be quite an experience. So again, it will also give you the opportunity to see what the river is about. This is a picture from last year, and you can see some of the vessels that were on the river. I'm not too sure what that's called, but she had a good time. I talked to her when it was over. Here is a picture that was taken on, as we call it, the familiarization tour. And this was our first event from the Vermilion River Alliance, where we took the media. We had 3 television stations. We had all of the newspapers. We had 2 travel writers. And we went from Vermilionville to Arnoldville to see the headwaters. Then we came back down to Vermilionville, had a wetlands tour, and put them on the boat. Then we went down to Palmetto Island State Park for a picnic, and we came back. The reason for that particular poster being in the picture, that just last Tuesday, we were awarded the Project Front Yard Mayor President's presentation. Next slide. So basically, how you can help us, come join. If you have a problems or question, feel free to call any of us. We have an excellent website. Please join us, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Charlie. That's terrific. We really appreciate your leadership and encouragement, because somehow or another we have to get to the public. They didn't come today, but we really appreciate Don, Sagrera, Bess, Foret, Emile, Ancelet for being here, and Mr. Charlie and Jan Wyatt, his wife. Thank you all for your efforts, and I know I may not be among very large number of people, but I feel better having heard this message. Thank you all very much, and enjoy the parade.